You see the product, now take action. Miracle Food, suitable for all ages, the perfect cleanse and reboot. A product that helps promote a healthy immune system and a great anti-inflammatory. Don't just take my word for it. Sandman at Viral Hip Hop News strongly suggests you go over to chakradoctor.org and try out the incredible product, Miracle Food. Let's go.
That's well said. We definitely appreciate that. We shared some of the same sentiments, but I love the way you broke that down. Kind of going, you talked about LeBron, you talked about the NBA. I don't know if you see the situation with Miles Leonard, the basketball player for the Miami Heat who's playing. I guess he was playing Call of Duty or something, and he made a racist slur. He used the K word against Jewish descent. Yeah, he went there, and they're pretty upset. Micheal Rappaport's been pretty upset. I've been watching him on IG, and he was calling out, basically the black community calling out players like LeBron James for not being outspoken in regards to this racist comment that he made towards Jewish people.
This Myers-Leonard situation. I feel like everybody has stopped talking about this. LeBron James usually has so much to say about so many things. He hasn't said a word about Myers-Leonard or the vaccine. I don't know why he doesn't talk about Myers-Leonard or the vaccine, but that's neither here nor there. I'm so disappointed, disgusted, but not surprised that so few people, so few athletes have spoken out about this Myers-Leonard situation. If this had been a white athlete calling a black person the N-word, Joe Biden would be being asked about this. AOC would have spoken on it. Every single athlete and every single sport of all different races would have spoken on this, would have been asked about it. For some reason, I don't know why, because he used the K word, this is like being swept under the rug. And again, I don't think Myers-Leonard should be canceled. I made a comment yesterday that where's LeBron? LeBron speaks out about everything except for Myers-Leonard and vaccines. And some people, a lot of my comments in this forum said, why should LeBron speak out? Why should he speak out about that? He speaks out about things in his community. That's division right there. That's division right there. And this isn't about LeBron. You're either anti-Semitic, anti-racist, anti-homophobe, anti-piece of shit or not. It's not about communities. It's not about you represent your own community. You either represent doing what's right, doing what's good, doing what's fair, or you don't. It's not selective.
I was curious to know your perspective on that. As black people, do you feel as though we have an obligation to speak out against racial inequality when it comes to other races?
No, because the Jewish community, I mean, they're doing all right. You know, they got our Hollywood actors out here putting on dresses and whatnot, you know, like the guy from Coming to America and everything. They totally fucked up hip hop, you know, in the 90s. They just start, you know, they let you, they literally will pay people to call you the N-word all day long in a song, and we crazy enough to keep dancing to it. Like we just become normalized to it, which you know, obviously that's a problem. But then again, though, it goes to that deeper issue of, you know, I really don't react when somebody uses the N-word toward me or in any context, even if the person's not black, because I decided that I really don't care what somebody else thinks about me anyway. You know, if you think about it like sports, you know, like if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you think that you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs think they're superior to the Buccaneers, and they call you a derogatory name, and they say the Buccaneers suck, you know, forget the Buccaneers. Well, you know, it doesn't matter unless you let it matter. Right? It's just talk. Right. You know, so what you do is you go kick their ass on the field and show them that clearly, you know, Chief superiority does not reign around here. So I see that when it comes to white supremacy. White supremacy is most effective when it gets in your head. You know, they spend more time trying to control the mind of the slave than the body. So when we get triggered every time a white person uses a name or a word or whatever, what happens in many cases is we're giving power to a powerless person. You know, some toothless redneck who's mad at the world decides he wants to use the N-word. Suddenly, you know, we're going to go to jail because we're trying to kick his ass in the mall or whatever. And it's like, why? Like, you know, I could literally walk right past that because you call me a name, fuck it, I'm gonna call you a name too, and then we're gonna just go our separate ways, right? Yeah. So I think now flipping back to what you were saying about the Jewish community and derogatory language. I think Micheal Rappaport, I mean, I really think he should just shut the fuck up. I don't dislike the guy. I just who cares what he says, right? He doesn't matter. I think people can speak up on it if they want to, but remember, if you are stepping up to defend, the rights and freedoms and the respect of the Jewish community, well, then that means they then have an obligation to come back and talk about the shit they've done to us, because what they've done to us is up here, And I mean, just didn't even. I'm not thinking of so many things. Nick Cannon, look at that, man. I mean, that was like they still got him apologize. Like he apologizes 3 times a day before he even eats breakfast. So I'm just not really. I don't care. If other people want to go cape for the Jewish community, they can do that. But I'm not one of those guys.
I was just going to ask you about Nick Cannon. My next question too. How do you feel about the aftermath of that? He actually went back and got his show back. Do you think he lost in that situation? He kind of bowed down, in your opinion?
Yeah. I think that Nick. See, what happens is that unfortunately, the reason that our community cannot move forward the way that it should is because we have a lack of balance. We have an overweighting in terms of the people that white mainstream media tends to pay attention to. They tend to pay attention to like entertainers and athletes, and they ignore, so many other people in the community that have something important to say. They ignore the activists, they ignore the scholars, they ignore the lawyers, they're ignoring the doctors. They'll go ask Lil Wayne questions about political science that a political science professor should be answering. So these are very serious questions, but that's all by design. It's designed to kind of create a clownish perception of Black people, because you're grabbing the clowns, or you're grabbing people that are answering questions that are above their pay grade, that are outside their area of expertise, making them look crazy. Like as crazy as I would look trying to go in the booth and become a rapper. I can't do that. Right now, Ice Cube, and I promise you, we'll definitely drill in on what you're saying about Nick Cannon. Now Ice Cube, shout out to him, because Ice Cube understood that balance. Ice Cube understood that, look, as an entertainer with a gigantic platform, I have a role to play, but I'm going to respectfully play that role in a way where I'm going to call people. He called me, he called a bunch of people to get input, to know what to say when he would go out there in front of the world, and he did it beautifully, right? And I love that kind of partnership, right? So the problem that you have is not everybody's as smart as Cube was during the election. A lot of these entertainers think that because you got 20 million or 30 million Twitter followers, that you're naturally an ambassador for the Black community. When in many cases, you're having a conversation that's above your pay grade. And the thing is that because they've got this alpha male bravado, they want to jump out there out front. Like the shit pops off, and they like the guy who just joined the gang last week, and as soon as something goes down, he's like, where's my strap at? Where's my gun at? Right? And he's ready to go, but he's never really been to war. Right? You're not really a soldier. Like you just showed up. Right? There are people that have been fighting this battle for a long time, and they're not so quick to fight because they understand the gravity of the situation. Right. So when you look at two examples, I think of are Nick Cannon and Snoop Dogg, where they jumped out in the front of a conversation, a front of a racial conversation, because they could get the most attention. And then what they did was they took the wheel of the truck and they drove the truck off the cliff. When Snoop Dogg came out and called Gayle King a doghead bitch, I said, man, why did you say that? Like, it was great until you got to that part. Now I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to come back and they're going to put weight on you, because now they're going to start calling you a sexist and all this other stuff. And Snoop was apologizing 3 days later and kept apologizing. Like Nick, they got Tourette's. I'm sorry. Well, that's because they got too much leverage on you. You're too wired in to that infrastructure for you to really be acting like you're some kind of a rebel. That's all a persona you built, but we know that that's not really, like, you're not really about that life. So with Nick, I felt like he could have contributed, right? Like, he was doing great.
Yeah.
He's out there, he's being pro-Black. He's got Candace class. I love it. If I were him, I probably wouldn't have even had an interview with Professor Griff. Somebody else should do that interview. Maybe Nick can promote the interview, right? But maybe Nick shouldn't have been the guy doing the interview, because Professor Griff is going to have an honest conversation about all issues that relate to race. Nothing's off limits to him. You can't have that conversation if you're a Black man trying to keep a job. You can't. So when all that happened to Nick, I wasn't surprised. And it happened exactly the way I expected. There is too much money on the line. I don't know how much money these guys are making, Nick and Snoop or whatever, but I imagine that they've got quite, $50, $100 million on the line. Who's going to give all that up just to stand by your principles? It's very hard to do. So the best people to have those conversations are the people that are already marginalized from the system. The Farrakhan types. So maybe people like me. I don't work for anyone. No, I don't ask anybody's permission before I say what I got to say. But people like that should not be having those conversations. Go keep your job. Nobody's going to be mad at you for that. But what people will get mad at you for is when you step out and take the lead, and then you take a movement that was bigger than you, and you completely undermine the credibility of it because you want to punk out when the heat gets hot.